Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation, along with,
CJ Lou from the Fire It Up with CJ show.
if you've ever wanted to live your truth, discover your purpose, and share your inner flame with the world, then do we have the show for you. Today, we'll be talking about finding your voice, your true authentic self for greater direction, confidence, happiness, and contribution. We'll talk about finding it through automatic writing, journaling, drawing, and other creative endeavors. That plus we'll talk about rumble rules, running like grandpa, U-shaped valleys, a new hero of mine, a plethora of podcasting, the meaning of 7 years, and a not-so-chance encounter with a red-spotted newt. Gotcha. So welcome back to the show, CJ. Are you ready to
I
shine?
am ready to shine. Woo! Red spotted nuke. Go for it. What is Okay, you got to start with that one.
Well, I had no idea. So we're running along on the trails, and we seem to be on this roll with seeing different stuff on the trails lately. We're
Right.
we're still waiting for the hobbits and the elves to come out, but
Right.
we're convinced they will eventually. But we're out in the middle of nowhere, New York, New Jersey border, running along, and Jessica stops. I spot it too. There is a day glow salamander on the trails right in front of us.
Oh, cool.
Um, with it's day glow orange with red orange spots with black rings around them, really
Wow.
prominent looking. And it is I go for my camera expecting it to bolt off, and it doesn't bolt. It let me take some pictures of it, and I'm sending it love at this point.
Right.
Yeah, the nude is posing, and then I ask, "Can I pet you?"
Wow.
And it doesn't bolt. And then I ask, "Can I pick you up?" And I pick them up in my hands, and I spend some time with it in my hands. We've got photographs. We'll put them on Facebook and that stuff, and spent quite a bit of time with it before we decided it was time and put it down, said some prayers, and left. It turns out I'm not concerned about it at all. We were sending it love. There's no aggression. It's another, like we saw the rattlesnakes recently. It's
Yeah.
also poisonous, and but I didn't sense any untoward feelings from it toward me. And we looked it up in the car as we left the trails. And first we looked up reptile and totem and reptile on your path, and that didn't really give us anything to go on. So instead we figured to look up salamander.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we looked up salamander, it says if salamander has crept across your path, salamander is asking you if you're using your time wisely. It is important to make the best use of your time and to balance the opportunities that are available to you. Know that you have the ability to make adjustments necessary in order to seize the moment. Alternatively, the appearance of this amphibian heralds transformation. It also announces assistance with this change from a source somewhere outside of ourselves. This could be either through an unexpected person or a unique resource. And it says, occasionally when this animal appears, oh, this next one didn't seem to appear to us on detox. Then it says, if salamander is your animal totem. And when we got back to the car, I'd been talking about the tar sands and what it really means, and that they basically knock out a forest. There's no such thing as sands for the tar sands.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually forest. It's the second largest deforestation behind the Brazilian rainforest. I had no idea the economic disaster or consequences of it. And so I'm talking about this with Jessica. She's looking up salamander, and then it says salamander animal totem. And she goes, you have a very close connection with the environment and often tend to be somewhat of an activist in this regard.
That's
You
funny.
recognize the stewardship in all things Gaia and speak against the mismanagement of your resources. So the salamander came
Oh.
across our purpose to tell us, I think things are going to be shifting for you, which we know, to look at how things should go for you, and then say what you're doing or your voice with the earth is probably on track.
Right. Very cool. Wow, what an incredible experience. Thank God you didn't get bitten. What would have happened if you got bitten by that little
I
salamander?
don't imagine it was going to be anything fatal,
Okay.
but but I rarely haven't. Bug bites happen on occasion. That I have so many strange, unusual animal experiences, and that's not typically the case. Now, with that said, I had a squirrel bite me years ago. That one
Wow.
surprised me.
Yeah.
I'd been feeding it nuts, and one day I didn't have any nuts for it, and so it assumed my thumb was its nut. It's like holding on to my thumb. I'm running around the yard. It's like a movie screaming. Ah!
That's funny. I actually had one time a ladybug. I was signing a contract with someone, and all of a sudden a ladybug just landed on my hand right around the time that I was signing it, and I thought, oh, well, that's good luck. A ladybug landed on my hand, and then it bit my hand, and then I thought, I'm not sure what
Do
to
not
do. So I
sign.
ended up signing a contract. I probably shouldn't have, but it did bite my hand to tell me, like, yeah, I don't think so. Like, I'm normally good luck, but just want to forewarn you. But I didn't know that ladybugs could bite.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, it
I
was
didn't
like
know
a little
salamanders
creature.
could bite either.
Yeah, who would have thought? Okay, so you had this happen earlier this week, this run where
Yep.
you actually
Yeah,
very
that was 3 days ago, something like that, which
yeah
which leads into another one, which is running like grandpa. And
yeah
I just wrote a blog post on this today. So we ran 2 weeks ago when we spoke. We've been running like crazy, everything awesome.
right.
Last week was pretty rainy. I only got out once during the week, and it was a much lower energy level, a much lower movement week.
Mm-hmm.
This week when I went out, I was like Jessica would call me the proverbial fuddy duddy.
Oh,
The first day, I could barely move. My knees were so sore. My Achilles were so sore. My
because you hadn't
hips,
been out before during the beginning of the week. That's why.
because I hadn't been out much last week.
Right.
And I had no idea this was so dramatic of the use it or lose it. That just
Mm,
being in this chair, doing my work and getting back out, how incredibly sore I was. And so the first day was the most ridiculously awful run I've done in forever. And I finally
mm.
started to warm up a little at the end of the run. She said, "Are you going to be able to go out tomorrow?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, I'll be okay." The next day's run, amazing,
Hmm.
because I had gotten my body moving again. And so
Right.
we don't realize often that our energy levels, we say, I don't have the energy to work out, or I really need the time to rest. How often we need the time to move. Maybe it doesn't need to be aggressive movement. We certainly should listen to what our body has to say. But oftentimes when we think we don't need movement, it's the lethargy of not moving speaking.
That's interesting. Well, so what's interesting is there are two different ways of listening. So part of the purpose of this is to finding your voice and your authentic self for greater direction. So in the case of the salamander, you found your voice through a spirit animal, right? Like you tuned
Yes.
in, you talked to this animal, and it helped you find your voice. And in the case of the running, you're finding your body's voice, and it was helping you learn something. Like sometimes it's about getting, because that's a life message, right? Sometimes you feel like, oh, I shouldn't be doing it, but it's actually the opposite. It's about doing it and getting things moving. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
and getting that energy unstuck, which is really to me finding your voice and finding your authentic voice is getting unstuck. It's getting that energy moving, getting the what I like to say is I don't want to die with the music still inside.
right,
Whatever I'm here to bring, let's bring it out. And
right,
for everybody, I think whatever you're here to bring, whatever unique contribution, let's get that energy moving.
right.
And getting physically moving literally showed A, how much the energy can get stuck and how easy it is to uncork it and get it going again.
Right. Yeah. It's funny because this week I was meeting with my coach, and I didn't even realize something was happening until it happened. You know what I mean? Like until she said it. You know how things they seem like a yeah duh, but then you go, oh gosh, that is what's happening. But um, I've been talking to you over the last probably a year and a half. I've been recognizing that it's time. I read a whole bunch last September. I read a whole bunch of parenting books, and it's very clear that they say at this juncture, when your kids are teenagers, which my kids are now 15 and 17, it's time to let go of the reins. Like you want them to be able to emerge into capable, responsible adults. And in order for them to do that, you as a parent need to let go and let them make mistakes, and tell them that they're accountable and responsible, but let go. And I realized that my type of parenting really had to shift from where it was to where it should be. And part of that has been examining how am I going to actually do the things I want to do, because I have forgot, like after having kids for 17 years, you start forgetting that you actually have needs. I mean, I've always put my needs behind my kids' needs and then my husband's needs. And now it's at a point where actually I don't have to do it, but I've been habitually used to putting my needs second. And so she said, yeah, actually what I'm noticing, so I was talking to this person, it just seems so obvious because over time I've been, over the last year, I've been working towards this goal of finding my own voice. Now, you know what I mean? After being a mom for so long, and that there's a mom's voice and it's a beautiful voice, but there was a new voice that was emerging. And she said, yeah, that like it's at the time now where you are supposed to put yourself first over your husband or your kids. And I just looked at her. I'm like, oh my gosh, that is what I'm doing. And I didn't realize until she said it out loud that I thought, oh my gosh, that is what I'm doing right now. I didn't articulate it that way, but it's finding my own voice. And so yesterday, my son said, can you get this, snack for me? I'm like, no, get it yourself. Like, you can do it. It's just, I mean, it was interesting. Just,
Mom!
Yeah, just like saying out loud, it just was so freeing to put yourself first. Especially when, as a parent, sometimes you really, it's about putting yourself first, but also you have, part of your needs also are your kids' needs and your husband's needs. And so it gets very confusing. But anyway, so that was my experience of finding my authentic self and voice. Cause I don't know, I said to my husband, I said, when we went in to have our kids, I drove and I had a Maserati and I drove into that garage in the hospital with Maserati, and I came out in a minivan, and I I had no idea what happened. I'm like, what happened? Now I'm driving. What happened to my Maserati? Now I'm in a minivan.
My Maserati is still in Boulder. I literally don't know what happened to it. When we moved to Maui, Maserati did not go with me.
Well, do you know what I mean? Like, there's a part of yourself that. And so I'm talking, it's a metaphor for a part of yourself that you put away. You put away because it was that time, that's when, and then I said, but what's interesting now that, I've been driving the minivan, I'm kind of used to driving the minivan and forgetting that the Maserati was even in the garage, but I actually don't even want the Maserati. And I said, but I guess the question is, what car am I going to come out as? Because I don't want to be a Maserati, nor do I want to be a minivan.
You can't go back.
No, you can't. You can, but I think you can. Some people choose to go back to exactly where they were. I have a lot of friends who, they took off and they go back to kind of like they resumed, they hit pause and they went back to the same job that they had before they had kids. But for me, and I think that's perfectly fine if that's what makes you happy. But for me, I just don't want to do that. And so now I've been, contemplating. So what kind of car do I want to be? And, I want to be a Tesla. I want to be good for the environment, beautiful, thoughtful.
Tesla, bring back your Roadster. Bring back your Roadster. I don't need a giant sedan. I need the little Lotus.
Yeah, exactly. But anyways, that's my story. That's my story that I just literally figured out yesterday. And it seems ridiculous but you know what? Sometimes it just takes that little moment of aha, someone else reflecting back to you, like, yeah, this is what you're doing.
Well, it's not necessarily a show about getting a coach, but it shows what having somebody else, another set of eyes and ears and heart can do for you.
Right.
Because we're often in the fishbowl and we can't see we're in the minivan.
Right. Well, just like the red spot at Newt, right? I mean, that was like another pair of eyes. Like, it couldn't talk to you, but it was talking.
It's interesting. The spots on it are like many pairs of eyes.
Yes, exactly. Like it was looking at you and kind of bringing forth to you a message that you couldn't.
That's funny. You're holding out your hand, and I have an image of him looking up at my eyes with my hand extended out like that. So let me have you put your microphone, if you could, just a
Sure.
little bit closer to
Yeah,
you.
there's that better?
I think that is better.
Okay, good.
That's a little
You
bit
have to hear
better.
my authentic voice, right?
Well, we can hear your authentic, but we want that deepness, that
Yes.
richness,
Oh,
the
I hear.
texture to
I
it.
hear. Okay, so talk about your rumble rolls. What's
So
that?
Rumble Rolls is a device like a foam roll
Hmm.
that actually has these almost like barbs that stick out of it. It's like an S&M device, I guess. I don't know if you picture something or picture some medieval torture device. And
Okay.
so after I hop off of the seat a couple times a day, I'm going to that Rumble Roll and rolling out over my quads. And it has been awesome for working out both knots and helping relieve tension on my knees, which have felt like they've had tendonitis, but it's actually the chair.
Oh, wow.
And so the rumble roll, which in the past I would never go to that thing because it's so grisly, right now is like it's like a real deep tissue massage getting
Mm.
in there. And I'm learning how important it is, it's balance, how important it is if you take the time sitting down, whether that's working, writing, journaling, drawing, whatever it is, to take that time and balance it with time out of the chair or balance it with body time.
Mm.
And so that's one of the pieces of body time that I'm balancing it with. In fact, I'll catch myself now that we've been going a lot more physical books than Kindles, which allows me to get out of the seat to read. I'd be down on the rumble roll,
Right.
rolling myself out while reading a book.
Yeah, or actually even better, all my girlfriends, they actually have the thing where the Kindle talks to you. So they'll be walking the dogs and the Kindle is actually reading the book to them. I love that.
I used to love that. These days, I've gone away. In fact, I literally just canceled my Audible subscription
Yeah.
today
Oh, really? Because you don't like
because
it?
I don't like it. I used to love quote unquote multitasking and doing a bunch of things at once while listening to a book. And now I like going with the monotasking,
Mm.
diving deep in that one thing. And when I read excessively fast at this point, I guess. I get pulled over for for speeding.
Right. That's so funny.
And so the words coming to me on an audible or something are so much slower than I'm able to rip through on the pages.
Mm-hmm. Wow. You know what? Well, what's interesting about the chair and moving around. I actually have had a very similar kind of experience where, but it's driven by a different thing that I had interviewed a gal this week, Tara Robinson, about productivity, and some other gal last 2 weeks before, two different interviews on productivity, and they suggest that every hour that you should move around because
Yes.
when you do that, actually it's actually good for your productivity. It's counterintuitive, but getting up and moving around, you move around, your blood oxygen's flowing, you're moving around, and actually it's going to help your productivity. It looks like you have a comment. What's your comment?
Oh,
I could tell.
555.
Yeah.
It's a nice sacred spiritual number. And to me, it means that 55 minutes into the hour, you take five.
Okay.
That every hour there's a 5 minute break, whether it's to meditate, whether it's to walk, whatever it is, take five out of the chair. You're out of here. Go do something.
Right, your rumble ball. That's what you did, right? And
Yeah.
like after 55, you may have done a rumble ball, but I think actually what's interesting about that, how does this relate to finding your voice or your authentic self? Is I think that what happens is when we're working, and we're working and we're doing something, we get lost in our minds. I do. I get lost. I've noticed that as I'm doing more sitting in the chair, I'm getting lost in my mind. So having that 55-5 type of experience allows me to I'm sustaining focus during that 55 minutes, but 5 minutes later, I'm just giving myself a break where I actually don't have to be sitting in the chair, and it allows that part of me, that my mind to go like to relax, and I can let my body and spirit, like with the rumble ball. That's what it's basically. Rumble roll. I'm sorry.
Rumble
That's what.
Roll. Yeah, we had a guest on earlier this week. Crazy Monk. Awesome, awesome gentleman. He's got a really fun YouTube video on a Google Talkie of Ajahn Brahm.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about, if you hold a mug in your hand
Mm-hmm.
for a minute or two, that's fine. But then it starts to get heavier and it starts to get heavier. And eventually your arm seizes up. And if you keep holding it, they take you to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically essentially what happens if we don't give ourselves a break. That tension builds up. We can't think clearly. And if we don't put down that mug once every hour or so, then we're not even present in whatever we're doing.
Right. Right. And so you're not creating. I was just talking to someone about this because I was saying I really want my work to be a moving meditation. And in
Yes.
order to do that, like you can't meditate for 6 hours during the day by just sitting at the table. Just you need to have breaks. And she said something that was really astute. She said, probably what's happening is your mind is either. So I said, I'm typing and I'm getting nervous and I'm not going to be able to finish this thing. And she said, well, that in itself is your mind running amok. And so taking the break and then also realizing that your mind wants to be thinking about the future. When is this thing going to be done? What are people going to think of me based on my past experience if I don't do this in this super perfect way? And I thought, well, that is so true. That's what's happening. And those thoughts and beliefs, huge productivity suck, right? Energy suck, and they get you out of the present moment.
What's fascinating about that too is the break is never the break. The break is actually the work. In other words, if you need a great idea, if you can't find something, whatever it is, if you step away from it, it's when the ideas come to you. So your subconscious isn't taking a break. You're finally giving it a chance to do the work.
Love that. Okay, so you talked about journaling, automatic writing, drawing. So how does that fit into your?
What we were trying to, both Jessica and I are trying to, if not, she's looking at the big picture, how to reinvent herself. I'm looking at what's our next step in the evolution of the show. And a few of the pieces that we've been doing is, first off, each morning on our own, we're automatic writing. Uh, and what that means is it's either writing to yourself or writing to your higher self or angels or to the divine or the cheeseburger in the sky or whatever you want to call it. Just start writing and see what comes of it. Right. And it is giving us both beautiful ideas and helping us discover, and this has been the big theme lately. I interviewed a gentleman, Todd Henry, on a book, Louder Than Words, on discovering your own authentic voice. It's helping us listen to ourselves and hear what we have to say. I keep rewatching this movie recently, Chef. And it's a movie about a chef who ends up in a flame war with a critic, melts down on camera, goes all over viral and on Twitter, loses his job, loses his dignity, loses everything, and he ends up buying a little food truck and traveling across the country.
I remember seeing a preview for that.
Awesome movie. Can't recommend it enough. And he says, well, let me try this. Let me see if I have a voice. Let me see if there's still something for me to say.
Right.
And when you automatic writing in the morning, you find out, and it could be through automatic writing, it can be general journaling, it can be through drawing. Another piece, an important piece that Jessica's doing in each morning, if you take that sacred time with yourself without expectation and say, let's just see what comes out, you find out you do have a voice. You find out you have a lot to say.
Well, it's so what came up to my mind is, oh gosh, when am I going to find time to do that? Right, but how long does it take?
Stop it, mind. Stop it.
But what's interesting is going back to this productivity. Someone, Tara Robinson, was saying there are these brief daily sessions where you do the things that you love, and that talking to your soul. I mean, what you're doing in that example is you're talking to your soul, and making time for that sacred connection is so important. But we often don't do it. And what she said is, start your timer for 3 minutes, just such a short period of time. And, do some automatic writing for 3 minutes so that you can touch into your soul and find out, like, what does your soul want to do? What is your passion that you want to talk about today? And if after 3 minutes nothing's coming of it, then you leave and you just write down where you left off. But if after 3 minutes you want to do another 3 minutes or another 5 minutes, that's how you build yourself into the habit of doing those things. But I've often said, I want to talk to my guides or angels and do but I don't. But I think if it was something that I just first thing in the morning that I do, it helps. How do you work that your writing into your day?
I think you just hit the nail on the head. And I'm thinking back to Catherine. Her name will come to me later. She wrote The Sweet Spot on micro habits. And so we have to establish these rather than say, well, some point I want to get it done. And why didn't I get it done? That's not picking on ourselves for not being strong enough or disciplined enough. It means we didn't build it into a system. So like you're saying, if you roll out of bed and the first thing you do is crawl over to your journal or crawl over to your computer, or brush your teeth and take care of that stuff and go back to bed with your journal in hand and know I'm going to do this for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is, then you will get it done on a regular basis. You don't even have to think about it. It's like putting
Right.
paste on the toothbrush.
Right.
You get out of bed, you take care of things, you grab your journal, you do it.
Right.
And you don't, there's no discipline involved. So that makes it easy. And that's what I've been doing. In fact, that the most interesting thing that's been coming up in automatic writing for me
Mm-hmm.
is I go, to your higher self, to your angels, guides, whatever I call it. It could even
Right.
be cheeseburger in the sky. I said, how are you doing? And I'll hear something like, well, it's great. It's great that you got to the computer today at 5 o'clock. I'd like to see if you can, there's no judgment here, but I'd like to see if you can work on getting here a little bit more earlier because we have a lot more to share.
Oh, wow.
And I'll
Interesting.
go, okay, cool. And I'll hear, you can do this very gradually. Take your time, be kind and gentle, but I'd like you to spend more time with me. Now, whether me is me or me is somebody else, I don't
Or the
know. Neil
cheeseburger in
Donald,
the sky. We don't know.
who has a clue? But I'm going to take that time. And so I just ask questions. How am I doing? What should I do? And what I'm hearing is that this is an important investment in my future is to take more time with myself and that it has to be done first thing in the morning. And I think it has to be done first thing in the morning for a couple reasons. First off, you want to do it before the whole world gets crazy all around you, or then you can't hear clearly.
Right.
And then forget about tapping into your higher self. You're in amygdala lizard brain, haha, no salamander pun intended, the fight or flight response.
Right.
But I think also doing it then, the day hasn't intruded upon you, meaning they're not being pulled in a dozen different
Right.
directions. So the energy is quieter and you're not pulled away. So you get it done there first thing in the morning.
Yeah, I like that
And
idea.
I think it can tell you both your voice and it can let you know, it can guide you to what you want to accomplish in a day, in a week.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to just being, it allows you to see, I think the big picture ideas start to pop into your head that way.
What are the questions? Are there recurring questions that you ask each morning? Um, or how do you figure out what questions you're going to ask?
I don't have the ultimate solution. I'm trying to figure out the best way. And so when I joke about all these different names, I'm not even sure who exactly I'm writing to, except that it's
Right.
probably an aspect of myself.
Right.
And so I'll throw out different questions. Is there anything we should be doing differently? Although I try not to use the word should. Anything we get to do differently with the show?
Right.
Are we on track this week? Are there things I need to change? Are there things I need to improve? So I just kind of throw questions out there. Or if I'm brain numb, if I'm going there going, I'm not trying to do, I'm just trying to be, I'll just say, hi, higher self, how are you today?
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't hear anything, I'll write down, I'm not hearing anything. And then I'll hear something.
Hmm.
And whether it's me that I'm hearing, or like a couple days ago, it was my mentor, Jack.
Mm.
And he passed away at what, 92, 93. He was our best man at 89 at our wedding.
Mm.
And I'll start hearing the, damn it, Michael. And he was getting on my case of all things on social media and connecting with my audience.
Ah,
And that
interesting.
came out again without Jack's voice, that came out again of you will flip this on this head. You will take your weakness. The weakest thing is social media,
Mm-hmm.
and you will flip it on your head and find a way to make it your greatest gift, greatest skill. And it
Mm.
is a time where I'm trying to find a way to reach out with my audience more. And I wasn't thinking that
Right.
when
Like you
I
weren't
typed
thinking that
that.
at the moment. That's why it feels like it's some type of guidance that's not yours. Well, it's interesting because when I do anything kind of close to channeled writing, I usually ask if I don't know what to ask, I'll ask what do I need to know for my highest good, for the highest good
Beautiful.
of myself and others. So that's one thing that I ask. And then if my mind is occupied thrashing around trying to solve a problem or figure something out, I'll say, so, like, what do I need to know about the current project that I'm working on? What is hidden that I cannot see about this project that would help, enhance the quality or the whatever, or help me decide what I need to do for um, this decision that I'm trying to make. What don't I see that I need to know? So that's like either decisions or like things that I can't see, or sometimes I'm like I'm exhausted please just give me a healing. Because you know
I
what I
like it.
mean. Because so I actually do several different things,
Mhm.
but they're similar to yours. But I haven't done it. Usually mine are kind of happen throughout the day, sometime during a day. But I like the idea of just getting the most important things done first thing in the morning. I like that idea. And what I like about that I don't hear in some of the other productivity things, they're like, pick your three work items that are the most important, or your three life importance, that three things that are important intentionally for you, right? So I want to be, of service, or, whatever those kinds of things are. I want to be there for my family. Um, what by tuning into your inner voice, it actually it just ferrets out kind of what's important to your soul. Where I think, I want to spend time playing, softball with my son, or, doing, reading with my daughter, or whatever. Those are important, but there's some qualitative soul oriented thing that you would get through checking in every morning that you probably would not get through just kind of a conscious, what do I need to do kind of thing.
For myself, it means I'm not driving the ship during
Right.
that time. And then Jessica, she's an amazing artist. It's something she put aside for almost a couple decades, and her mom is an award-winning artist, amazing painter,
Wow.
these Asian
Right.
landscapes. And so she's picked this back up, and so she draws each morning.
Mm.
And when she draws, the ideas come to her. So she's got her journal on hand, ready to go, and then she draws for a while. She's been drawing this most amazing sea turtle at the moment, and I can picture this
Mm.
giant painting that she'll make eventually. And so she'll draw the sea turtle, and then she'll hear things, and she'll go and journal, and she'll have that automatic writing conversation, and then she'll go back to her drawing. And this helps her keep in that, I don't know, I'll call it the no mind place
Mm-hmm.
where she's not thinking and things come to her. I know I've had that experience with sunrise and sunset photography as well, where when you're in that creative moment, the chatter stops.
Mm-hmm.
And then the things that bubble up, particularly they bubble up. There's not a, if you draw back in a line, you won't find the idea started from here because I was thinking about that, but thinking about. Instead, it just bubbles up. You realize that's coming from someplace special, from your
Mm-hmm.
intuition, from your heart, from your higher self. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the important thing to get down. And so
Mm-hmm.
she's been using that as she's really working because she's just healed. And so she's a new her. And so
Mm.
she's like, where do I go? What do I do? Now she's the producer of the show, but she's like, I've got something more to say. I have my own voice. What does that look like?
Mm. There's a author, Bernie Siegel. Have you ever heard of
Yes.
him? Have you
Oh,
heard
we
of
had
his?
him on love. We had him on love, animals, and miracles. He's also love, medicine, and miracles.
Okay, that guy. Well, first of all, that guy just emanates love, which is he's like the
He
pure
rocks.
manifestation of love. But one of the things that he does, he has a book all about drawings, and
Mhm.
he would analyze. Did he share with you that the drawings of the
No,
people
we
who
had him
paint?
on animals, but now I want to have him back already.
Yeah, have him on the drawing, because what he said is that he can look at a picture. So he would have people who are about to go to surgery and say, I'd like you, little kids or adults, and they said, I'd like you to draw what your anticipation is of this surgery. And, depending on, where the people embodied or not, where the, pictures, like where the various, like where is sunshine, like, all the things that they drew, where was the light, how did they draw the hospital room, it really gave a sense of what they were thinking about. And like literally he can diagnose pictures down to a science and what those pictures are trying to tell you. So, not to get too scientific about it because it's intuitive, but just like when you were seeing the newt and then you were actually reading what the spirit guides, what the spirit animal is, it's very similar with paintings and pictures. And I don't know if Jessica's interested in that, but that would be an interesting book to get. It's Bernie Siegel, and he has all these things about drawings and interpretation of drawings.
Oh, absolutely. And we're very much into, we're complete, whatever level is before amateur. We're at the before amateur level on Jungian psychology and
Yeah.
understanding dreams and stuff. So this is all cool and it's all synchronicity and it's coming from a special place. So would love to learn more
Yeah,
about
yeah. So and then the other guy that I talked to that was so interesting, did dream analysis. And so he would actually have, and I'm probably going to get this like 60% correct, but if you had a dream, he would have you. So let's say I'm in a house, and there's a big flood that comes down, and then all of a sudden I'm swimming, whatever it is. And so he would say, okay, so focus on the dream, and what part of the dream was like registered larger than life. And for me, it may be like, oh, it was when the flood came, and then he'd say, okay, well, go into that dream, tune into the flood, become the flood. And so I was imagining, the flood, like, okay, I am the flood. And then you ask the flood, what is it that you want to tell me? And then like some like miraculous thing emanates from your mouth that you didn't even
Do more
know.
social media,
Yeah, yeah, or something like that.
CJ.
And then you tune in, and then you say, "Is there any other messages?" And then you go to the next thing, which is the next thing is you look at if there's anything in vivid colors, like anything that was like a bright light or a vivid color, and then you tune into that area and ask, what is it that you want me to know? And so, because this is your subconscious, your dreams are your subconscious trying to talk to you, but we don't have necessarily a dictionary. Like you can go to a dream dictionary, like what does it mean when I'm flying? And those are really helpful. But then your dream dictionary may, like if you are a pilot, what you associate with flying may be different than what you and I would associate with flying. And so it's all about a process to like tune into one aspect of your painting or your dream and merge. This is a shaman idea. You merge with that entity and then ask it to tell you what wisdom it has to offer. But
I
those are some
like
other
that.
fun things to do.
I like that, and I think it can help with the general theme that we're talking about, which is ferreting out what's going on in the inside to get an idea of what we want to say. And say
Right.
doesn't have to be words. What we want to do, what we want to, how we want to perform, how we want to do anything in life,
Right.
of figuring out that voice. And so why not? Why not through the dream world? That sounds too weak. What an awesome way
Right.
through
Well,
our dreams.
because uh, there are voices all over the place, right? There's our subconscious voice that comes out
Mhm.
of that. There's when you're painting, that's another way of your subconscious being able to like be identified with images and pictures and things. There's the voice, like what you're talking about with automatic writing, and then sometimes there's just reading. Like you'll read poetry, or listen to a song, and it just it hits you right here, and
Music is
it's
a huge voice.
yeah, so it's that's not the way that I do it, so I can't really talk about what happens when that happens. Do you find music and poems, is that your way, one of your ways?
It would be music can be one of my ways. I write often when I write, and it doesn't look like poetry necessarily to anybody else, but there's a cadence to it.
Hmm.
And I think that may be why I speak well when I do speak well, is there is a natural cadence or rhythm to it. And so I'm always looking for that or feeling for it. You use drums. So
Right,
actually you do use music in a sense.
right. Yeah, that's true. I actually use music to go into a trance state. But some people go into music and I don't know. I can't say that it's probably, they don't use it to go into a trance state. Maybe they do. I'm not a music person, so I can't really say how
Mhm.
people use music. But so when you go into the music, is it just creating a relaxed state, or do you hear something through the music or the poetry?
Music creates different states depending on what kind of music I want. So I can use music to tap in more to my creativity. I can use music to get me going if I'm feeling stuck, to get my energy levels up. Or I can use music just to help quiet me down because you sync up with whatever is playing, which is why actually it's often difficult lately to get into the gym in the morning
Hmm.
because sometimes the music can be very jarring
Right.
in the
Yeah.
gym and you sync up with it. So it becomes, I know before was it earlier today, before I did some, not journaling, before I wrote a newsletter earlier today. I sang one song, I let it evolve into another song. I saw
Yeah.
how they meshed together. I went quiet and I'm like, oh, I'm ready to write now. And it wasn't a conscious process,
Wow,
too.
that's interesting. So the music was like setting the stage for something to manifest. So I can see that. So then maybe it's, well, that's exactly when I'm doing shamanic drumming. I'm setting the stage. I'm actually getting my mind
Mhm.
into the theta alpha stage so that I can actually am able to know that I'm pulling from something outside of my just my conscious mind. So it seems like that the music would be a facilitator.
And
in a way.
Jessica and I have been through some shamanic ceremonies where the music, it sets the stage, it calls in, and it really, depending on the cadence, it takes you on a journey, which is what you're doing as well.
Right,
And so the music is your leader in a sense. I know that
right,
that didn't even sound strong enough, but the music leads the journey, which then helps bring up the ideas, the healing, whatever is
right,
going to take place.
right. Yeah. What's interesting too is that anything can be the shamanic folks have this idea of what is it called, shape shifting, but
Mhm.
it's idea that anything, any object even can actually, you can learn if you merged with it, you can learn and understand its true essence, and it has a lesson for you. So like you had seen the red spotted newt, and you're wondering like, what is the message that you have for me? And so if you were to merge into that red spotted mute, like just you have to ask permission. Like you can't just like, hello, I'm entering into the spirit of red spotted
Well,
newt.
sort of like I literally asked,
Right.
can I pet you? Can I pick you up?
Right, exactly. So you say, can I merge, become one with you? So
Sounds like Spock.
yeah, so if you were actually becoming Spock-like with your red spotted newt, like if you were to merge in with it, what do you think it would say to you? Like if you were to, like if you literally just imagine the boundaries between yourself and the red spotted mute being removed and that you were one, then it probably had a message for you. Do you have a sense of what it would be?
I felt like it was that I'm on path and transformation is taking place. It's interesting because it was a red spotted newt, orange. They call it red spotted newt. It's dark, almost flame orange with other orange on it with black circles around it. And I had just started wearing a jacket Jessica had given me months ago. I'm
Mm,
slow to adopt things sometimes,
yeah,
and I had just started wearing it, which was the exact color scheme of the
wow,
lizard, the orange, the red, and the black.
right,
And so, what are the odds of that taking place out in the middle of a forest, of seeing a day glow,
right,
day glow lizard? I mean,
yeah,
usually chameleons, salamander things are, they're camouflage.
right, right.
So it
Interesting.
had a message for me, and I can't say that I got the full message out of it. I was trying to go quiet and hear what else do you have to tell me.
Hmm.
And I think that's important, whether it's a salamander that you find or just the time that you take with yourself. What else can I get out of this experience? What
Hmm.
else is there to hear?
Hmm. Hmm. All right, we have some other items. U-shaped valleys,
Yep.
a new hero, and a plethora of podcasting. How does this relate to finding your voice?
Well, we'll
What's
go with
going
a
on here?
plethora of
Okay,
podcasting first,
okay.
which is, it's funny, the conversation that you and I had before the show,
Hmm.
because I get this conversation a lot, and I've just started accepting coaching clients in it,
Hmm.
which is helping people to get their show going,
Right,
helping people to start their own podcast.
right,
We clearly have a little bit of experience in this
right.
arena, and it
Exactly.
seems like everybody is looking to start a show these days.
Hmm.
So it's about, I don't know, 50% of the authors I get off of the show with, and they go, I'm trying to set up a show. Can you help
Mm.
me with this or that, or can you
Oh,
tell
that's
me about?
fantastic.
And so
That's great.
this is helping others to find their literal voice.
Right, right.
And so this is actually like candy. So I've been getting really excited about helping others to
Yes.
find their voice at the same time that I'm spinning it back around and going, okay, Michael, you've got this great show going here. And one of the things I hear from automatic writing is it's time to start writing books. We're starting to crank up the writing again. And so I'm going, let me help other people to find their voice with their shows. Michael, what is your voice?
Mm.
You've been listening to a lot of people. What is your voice? And I have been trying to get very clear on that, particularly as I'm starting to work with others. So it's been really cool. And like our first book is probably going to be, and sit back and prepare to whatever. The power of woohoo.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! Yeah.
Because my voice is, I bring a childlike joy to things.
Yeah.
That is, people are either kind of stoic, they're kind of reserved, they're, let's grow up, let's be serious,
Right.
let's get serious and focused now.
Right.
I'm all about woohoo! And through that, everything comes about.
Right.
Through connecting to that childlike joy. And so I'm working to develop what my voice, what my unique thing is that I have to share with people.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's a woohoo, and it's love because you like every single thing you guys do, both of you as a couple, is about love. I mean, from at least I don't know, listeners,
I'm
please write
holding my
back.
crystal here,
Yeah,
and I'm
exactly.
sending love with each. I'm literally sending all of my guests and my audience love as I'm doing the
Right.
talks.
Right. And that's part of like that is
Yeah,
part of the essence and the uniqueness that you bring. I mean, it's part of your voice. And then
thank
the
you.
other thing is you have a lot of practical things to do, right? I mean, every single one of these shows is, I mean, this whole show that you and I are doing is an experimentation for both of us finding our voices because we, we're like, let's just do a show, and see what happens. And
Sounds
what
like Seinfeld. We'll
yeah,
do a show about nothing.
exactly. Perfect description of the show. But it's basically finding out like you're a storyteller. So every single time, if people were to listen and dissect what happens with the show, you actually tell a lot of stories. You tell stories, and what do I do? Like I'm listening to the stories, and I'm always connecting because I'm a synthesizer, and so that's how that's my story, my voice, right? I'm a synthesizer. I listen to things. I'm trying to connect things together. I'm trying to draw insights out of the things that you said in addition to the insights that you made or reiterate stuff that I think is really important. Like each of us has a specific voice. The two of us have a specific voice and I've noticed that developing over time. I'd love to hear the audience write back and tell us what they think um, our voice is, what your voice is, just because sometimes it's hard to see it yourself. I mean, I can see it
That's
more
a
in
good
you
point.
than I can see it in myself. But I definitely see the woohoo and then love and then just really practical tips and loving talking to people and like, oh my gosh, here's another tip. And it's your tip and then tips from other people, which I think both of us do, but that seems to be part of our voice. Do you do that with your other radio interviews? Just ask other people, like, like do you tell your stories with your other interviews too?
I do. That's one of the unique things that I do is I'm not trying to be to take their time, so to speak, but I want it to be conversational. And I let
Right.
them know in advance that this is going to be a conversation rather than I'm the little interviewer and I'm asking, the big questions and then it's
Right.
just a one-way street. That interaction, I think, brings out a sum that's a lot more than the parts.
Right, right. So then you're also bringing in your personal stories and adding your
Yeah.
2 cents so what we're doing, the interview that you and I have every week is very similar to how you're doing it with other guests.
With other guests, the only difference is I tend to be quieter.
Hmm.
So I'm still going to interject, but I tend to give them more time, particularly as they're getting to know me and starting to grow this relationship. And the
Hmm.
more of a personal connection there is, oftentimes the more that I will say. The caveat being, and I'll jump real briefly into this. I had on one of the most amazing human beings yesterday, and I spoke almost not at all. It was
Right.
the least I've spoken in any interview. And this is a gentleman by the name of Aaron Baker. He was a former junior world champion, motorcycle racer, pro racer, been a national champion multiple times, and had a bike failure, I think, while doing a jump, became a quadriplegic,
Oh, wow.
um, paralyzed from the neck down, couldn't do anything,
Wow.
and rebuilt himself with his mind.
Wow.
And he's done two, one on tandem with his mom, one on his own with a tricycle, bike rides across the country. And this is
Wow.
broke his neck in what is it, 4, 5, and 6, or cervical 4, 5, and 6, something like that. And full on quadriplegic, doesn't have the nerve connections. Had to find some other way, like talked about
Mm.
colored toenails. His sister, he hated it, paint him his toenails each one a different color of the rainbow. And so he started making the connection between his head and purple big toenail, purple big toenail, purple big toenail, and then got
Wow.
it to twitch. He was given a one in a
Wow.
million chance of feeding himself.
Wow.
And so I was dumbfounded by his story and his journey, and I just went quiet. No need for me to say anything.
Wow.
And such a spiritual being. He landed, his neck is broken. He knows his neck is broken. He can't even move his lungs to breathe. And so he went quiet and just went into such a place of allowance. The only thing he says is, I made sure they didn't take off my helmet because I felt that would make things worse. What's worse than full paralyzed? To take off the helmet, I guess he would have been gone.
Right.
How he even managed to say that, I don't know, but he got himself into that special place. He is in many ways still in that special place. And he did flatline in the hospital, flatline twice. He is on a mission to help others. He set up a rehab center to help others. It's called CORE. And clearly he is a very functional, highly functional quadriplegic, meaning the nerves still aren't there. And yet he went in Death Valley, I think it was last year, and it took him 4 days on his own, walked 20 miles across Death Valley.
Jeez. Wow.
So 5 miles a day with a cane, or actually in that case he used a three-wheel tricycle like you push a toddler.
Wow.
And 5 miles a day. Unbelievable human being. And there was not only is there no need for me to say anything, saying anything would have gotten in the way of his flow.
Right. Wow. And so that interview is when? Is it coming up?
As the crow flies, it'll probably come out just a few days before this one airs. And that's Aaron Baker and his absolute, how he's done it, the faith that he took, all the techniques that he used, the heart involved, and just the belief system that says, because the doctor said it ain't happening and told his mom there's no way. She wouldn't let them tell him that. And he found a way.
Right. He found his voice, right? In silence, in utter silence, in stillness. I think that is a beautiful way. That's beautiful.
And that is a woohoo.
That is a woohoo. Okay, my engineer is going to kill us if we actually keep on running over. So I think. Any thoughts before we wrap up?
I think that covers it for today. I think this has been. I would challenge everybody to take a little time with yourself each morning. To take time with yourself each morning and see what you have to say. That could be writing, that could be drawing, that could be pottery, clay, anything. Take a few minutes and just be and see what comes up. And even if what comes up, this is an exercise I use with people who I'm helping become better writers. To say, I don't know what to write, and to write that down or type it down. I think writing more kinesthetic better. I don't know what to write. I don't know what to write. I don't know what to write. And soon enough, the words will start coming to you. And then just listen. Cool.
Yeah.
Listen.
I'm going to do that. I'm going to put a little notebook next to my bed and start jotting these down. I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it, that idea.
If you're willing to share, let us know what you come up with, because this is a very cool process.
I will.
So that's all I've got. Anything you want to add to that,
That's
CJ?
all I got. That's all I got.
All right. We'll call that good. For everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler and
CJ Lou from the Fired Up with CJ show
saying, be well, have fun, take that time with yourself and discover your own inner voice and shine bright.